In the last lesson, I explained variables. Those are named identifiers whose values can change during the execution of our programs. But sometimes we want to have identifiers whose values can't change, and for that we need constants. It's the nature of a variable that while its name stays the same throughout your program, its value may change. Here, for example, I can change the value of my int. I previously set it to 100. I can now set it to 200. The other int beneath it, which I've named some other int, that hasn't got a value yet, so let me give it a value. Some other int equals, and I can set its value as the result of a calculation, so I'll do that now, equals my int times, this is the multiplication operator, 2. So that will multiply the value of my int by 2, and that result is then assigned as the value of some other int. Now let me try something else. I've got this value up here, tax rate, an identifier called tax rate, and I've set it to 0.2. Let me see if I can set that to some new value. So I've tried to set it to 0.3. I've got one of these red squigglies under it. That's an error. Error, it says, the left-hand side of an assignment must be a variable, property, or indexer. So what is tax rate? It's not a variable. It's been marked as a const. A const is a constant, and the constant cannot change. So I cannot reset the value that I've given to the tax rate constant. And that's very useful in some programs where you deliberately want to make sure that a value cannot be reassigned to an identifier. With a variable, you can assign new values at any time. So the value of my int, my double, etc. can change in the course of the program. With a constant, you want to make sure that can't happen. Now here, if I were writing a banking program, for example, something that did calculations on people's investments, I would want to make sure that the tax rate always stays the same. It can't just change randomly. And I've done the same with the string constant, warning message. So if I try to set that to something different, wait a little moment, and again the error pops up. So that is not a legal assignment. I have to get rid of it. All the sample code for the projects in this course are available for free download from the Bitwise Books website. Now I've got a text box in my program. I've already designed the user interface. It's called textbox1, and I want to set its text to my MSG variable. Now look what I've done with the MSG variable. I've declared it string MSG, but I've then added together 3 other variables. Let's see what they are. Warning underscore MSG is this one up here. My string is hello world, and my char, it's a single character, the exclamation mark. So I'm allowed in C# to append one to the other. A character in this case can be appended to a string because a string is just a sequence of characters, and that's an allowable operation to do and to assign it to the string variable. What is not allowable is the following. Is to assign an integer to the text field of text box 1. And again I get an error message and it says cannot implicitly convert type int to string. That of course poses a problem, because if I'm writing a calculator, for example, I'd want to display numerical values in the interface of my application. I'll explain how to do that in the next video. But for now, I'll live with the limitations that are imposed on me without having any ability to convert between numbers and strings, and so I'll just satisfy myself with displaying the string variable MSG. So I press Ctrl F5 to run the program. This is my simple user interface. My code executes when I click here, and you can see that, as expected, when I display MSG, I get warning message, this one here, followed by my string, which is this one here, followed by my char, which is the exclamation mark here. One final thing I'd point out is that when you're dealing with strings and chars, you have to be sure to use string and char delimiter characters. In C#, a string has to be delimited by double quote characters, whereas a single character is delimited by single quote characters. These characters only appear when you're writing your code, as you can see when I run the application. I shall do it again. The delimiter characters do not appear. To learn programming in depth, enroll in one of my courses or read one of my books. More information at bitwisebooks.com.